kick things off. Thanks everybody for joining this event. Just want to give you guys, first of all, I'm Mac from Kettle Space. I'm the event coordinator. I do have a bit of a delay, so hope that doesn't distract you too much. I'm on a farm upstate, so connection isn't great, as Victor knows. But we wanted to put this event together because, just to put it bluntly, a lot of our community is looking for work right now. We want to help our members kind of refresh their networking habits, rethink their network, also consider how networking has changed now that all interaction is virtual these days. So we teamed up with Beacon Hill Staffing to make that happen. Hannah Horvath is the senior staffing consultant at Beacon Hill Staffing. Hannah, I'll kick it over to you to
I'll share my screen. Give me a second. Oh, there we go. All righty. We're all ready for this event. Let's see if I know how to work a computer. Sometimes it hates me. There we go. All right. So hi, everyone. It's so good to see you guys. I'm new to the Kettle space, I guess. I just got in touch with Mac a couple months ago. My BNI group actually uses Kettle Space in the city, and we were using the space until I think it was February. So it's great to be here and put on this event. Again, my name is Hannah Rose Horvath. You can find me on LinkedIn under that. I am a senior staffing consultant with Beacon Hill Staffing Group here in New York. We are a staffing agency based out of Boston, but we have offices all across the country and a lot of different teams that focus on a lot of different types of roles and industries. Now, I am an Indiana University Kelley School of Business grad, 2017 grad. I studied marketing and business law. I'm originally from South Bend, Indiana. I was fortunate enough to spend about 4 months during quarantine back in South Bend with my family, but now I'm back in the city and happy to be back. And then my first job out of school was a district manager for Aldi Foods, which if you guys don't know about Aldi, we are a grocery chain originally from Germany, and they're quite big in the Midwest actually. And then just a little fun fact about me is I have a twin. As you probably noticed, my hair used to be very long. I cut about 12 inches off this summer because it was just way too hot in Indiana. And my twin and I look a lot more alike now because she has shorter hair too. One of our best friends we saw back home was very confused when she walked in the door. She thought I was my twin, which was hilarious. It's the first time we were able to trick her. But that's just a little bit about me. Now let's go through what we kind of want to do today. We'll start out with some breakout rooms where we will get to know each other a little bit, have you guys do introductions with a small group, and kind of just start talking about your networking goals and kind of what you brought with you today. Then I'll talk a little bit about the do's and don'ts of networking and then networking in COVID-19. We'll have a discussion about the gaps that exist in your spider web of networking. And then we'll kind of want you to think bigger, reach for a connection today that you can actually reach out to towards the end of this workshop so that you can actually, reach out to LinkedIn on someone or reach out to a meetup group or email someone that you know in your network or even text them, who knows, just to set up a one-to-one or, start, doing that type of networking. And then we'll just wrap up with some Q&A, maybe a little bit more discussion. If you guys need anything from me or have any questions for me individually, I'm happy to pop into a breakout room and have a one-on-one as well, just briefly too. So, Mac, are we ready to go into the breakout rooms, or do I need to continue talking about myself?
The rooms have been assembled.
Okay.
So yeah, we just want to, give you guys a chance to introduce yourselves to each other and talk about kind of what your networking goals are today. I will say, for those of you who don't have their cameras on, this is really helpful if you can kind of participate. We don't want anyone to kind of get stuck with people who aren't kind of participating.
We don't care how you look. You're fine. If you're still in your PJs, it's okay.
Just want to turn on your audio, just want to make sure that, people are engaged. Without further ado, I will open all the breakout rooms We'll hop in here for about 10 minutes, and then I'll see you guys back here momentarily. You should have a prompt up on your screen to join. Hello.
Hello? Hello.
Hello. Okay.
Are we all back?
Yep. We're back.
So the next thing I would love to talk about is the spider web. My manager and I kind of came up with this when I was chatting with her about networking and trying to expand my network, especially in the city. Being from Indiana, I had never lived in a big city besides if you count Indianapolis. And I really didn't have a network here in New York City. And as a recruiter, it's just so important to have a large network and like build that network, because then that's how I find candidates and get referrals. And a lot of our business is based on referrals, of course, just as I'm sure a lot of your businesses are as well. I know that, networking can be overwhelming and it's very hard to know where to start. So when I started to kind of map out my network, we thought of it as like this spider web, because I might have a ring of people around me that I know from work, from school, from clubs, from volunteering, from my gym, from my yoga studio that I know. But then if you think about it, they have their own networks as well. So it's just kind of reaching out like a spider web, because their networks then become your networks. And you can ask them for connections within their networks too. So when you're networking with an individual, you just have to kind of think about it in a way where you're not just networking with them, and they may not be able to help you with something or like refer a candidate right away for me, but they might know someone who is in the event space that now needs a job, and or knows a lot of people that need a job because they had to lay off a bunch of people when all of this started in March as well. So you have to kind of think of like your current network, who you're chatting with, and then just always value the person that you're talking with, because then their network becomes yours and you truly never know what you could get out of that. I always try to ask myself every once in a while when I'm thinking about networking and joining a new networking group or trying to focus on networking, like what I need out of my network as well as what I bring to the table. And just know that you're always networking. I've met some candidates on the subway when I've pointed them in the right direction, if they're actors or actresses are new to the city. I've met friends at the gym and workout classes. I know it's hard to like chat with someone, but sometimes it's easy to start a conversation like you're new to a workout class. Well, this was before COVID. You're new to a workout class, someone's right next to you that maybe looks like they know what they're doing. You can ask them a couple questions, introduce yourself. I mean, it's kind of a way to just start chatting with people and talking with people, and you truly never know what that could lead to. But I love the spider web analogy. It's my favorite. So the question for today would be, thinking about your networks, who would you reach out to that you might not have normally considered a networker for you? So that friend from your kid's school, or your yoga teacher that you haven't seen since March because of the studios had to close down, or someone on LinkedIn or university, or has
I think if they should put in the fridge for now.
Oh, sorry, I'm just going to ask you guys if you can mute yourself. Cool. I think we're good. Continue, Hannah.
Yeah. So just kind of thinking about who you could reach out to today in a variety of different ways that could be a good networker for you. So, my yoga teacher, she's a great networker for me because she works with other yoga teachers and works with a lot of other people that could potentially be candidates for me, or links to, businesses that I could potentially help to staff. So, alrighty. Some do's and don'ts. My favorite thing, especially the don'ts, because they can be pretty funny. But we can start with the do's. So definitely when you're going to that first event or meetup or virtual meetup, do your research on who's attending if you get a list beforehand, and then be prepared with your information. I realize business cards aren't used a lot anymore just because it is a virtual meeting, but just be prepared to have like your information so you can copy and paste it and send it to someone. Definitely be prepared with your story and what you bring to the table, and come with that ask, knowing that, you know, it might not happen right away, but it could happen eventually. Go in open-minded, definitely listen and observe, and then always, I would say, follow up and say thank you to anyone that you've met or connected with, or had like a really good conversation with when you were attending that event, just because, you know, it shows that you wanted to take the time to thank them. And I think it's always like a nice touch. Set a timeline for getting back to people. I know when you're in like one of these sessions where there might be like 12, 15, 20 people all on a webinar, it's hard to be like, you know, responding to everyone all at once. And especially when going to networking events, when I first started in New York, I'd get like stacks of business cards and know where to start. So I would always plan either the next day or the day after, setting aside like 30 minutes to go through those, and then type emails and thank you notes and connecting with the people that I needed to connect with. You can certainly do that now virtually too. And I think the most important thing would be to be kind as well, and know that, you know, you want to treat others the way you want to be treated in these networking events. And sometimes it can, you might come off like too thirsty, as I like to say, but that's in the don'ts. But just keep that in mind, maybe not be too aggressive too. But I would love to hear from you guys if you have any do's that are important that you've come across to come prepared for in like this virtual space. If anyone has anything to add. And then we'll get to don'ts.
I figured I'd share one of my do's, and I shared it with the breakout group. Was really to be the first person to ask, you know, how can I help you? Like, what are you looking for? Like, what's your client, what's your ideal client makeup look like? And also, who are some of the other professionals that may work with them if I don't really have a direct access to those type of clients? So that's primarily some of my do's. Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, no, it does. Another thing, it's on my don'ts, but it's also a do, is, you know, come in with like what you offer and what you can offer someone else versus, you know, coming right in with that ask, like, can I have this from someone? Righty.
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts, Hannah. And by the way, these are great slides. So I think it's good to kind of try to think of this in a systematic way. I think that certainly helps take a lot of the stress out of the networking. I guess my two thoughts are, number one, I like LinkedIn a lot as a great way to connect with people initially, right? Because I think it's fairly straightforward. It gives you a sense of who they are, and it's a good way to kind of ease into the process. And that's kind of my second thought about this, is I think it's helpful to try to make it like one message at a time with somebody. And so, you know, let's connect first, and then let's get to know each other, and then let's see what we can do, right? I think if you try to cram everything into one email, like, hi, I just met you, I do this, what are you all about? I need help with this, can you help me? Let's talk tomorrow, right? Maybe that's the thirsty thing that you're referring to. Right? So,
that is the thirsty thing.
Yeah, so let's do this like one sip at a time. You don't necessarily have to chug the whole keg, you know, right off the bat.
Ooh, expanded the metaphor. I like it.
Yes. Although it's only Thursday, you know, if only it was Friday.
I don't know about you, but in college we had Thirsty Thursdays, and that's where I got this from.
There we go.
So don't be thirsty. No, that's very important. And I just did a webinar on, you know, job searching last week, and I did bring up that point, like, if you're looking for a job and you're on LinkedIn and you're trying to connect with someone that has the job that you're looking for, don't come right out and ask, like, is there an opening in your company? No, you want to do the slow, you know, chit chat, get to know them, have them talk about themselves, and then if it's appropriate, you know, take the next step. You never know. But some of the don'ts, and of course, happy to hear from you guys on what your don'ts are if you've had a bad experience. I would say don't just focus on yourself. And definitely don't ignore someone if you can't immediately find a connection. For me, I just truly never know who's going to be a candidate or who could connect me to a candidate. So even if I'm meeting like someone who owns a construction company, I'm still going to be nice and kind and chat with them. And who knows, I might one day run into someone who needs a construction company. So of course I'm going to connect with them. And again, you definitely come in with offers that you have. Don't be too casual. Don't be too thirsty. And then I love this one. Don't have your camera off. I think it's so important for us, even today, nowadays, to have, since we can't be in the same room with everyone, to still have that face-to-face interaction, at least online. And then the best one is don't let fear get in the way. We're all nervous. I can tell you I was very nervous when I was walking into networking groups alone for my first couple of months here in NYC trying to build that network. And sometimes I would take a buddy and we would just like work the room together, or just would, join a group and just chat with someone who seemed friendly at first and then would kind of get the ball rolling. But we're all nervous, but don't let fear get in the way. The worst thing that someone could say would be no. But do you guys have any don'ts to share? Don't swear as a first thing in your first meeting too. That's a big one. That's in my interview tips as well. I tell candidates don't swear.
I do have, well, not a don't, but I do have a do.
Okay.
I noticed with business cards, and I guess that was working at a school, and alumni had told me that when you're connecting with somebody and they give you the business card, so you get a business card from somebody, write on the back of it how you met them. And if the person says, contact me back in November for lunch or something like that, whatever, then you can know, then you can look at that business card and say, okay, yeah, I got to contact them in November regarding this, that, and the other.
Yeah. No, that's such a good tip. I think my third or fourth event that I went to, I learned that from someone and was just like fiercely writing on backs of business cards, because sometimes I would get back to my desk at work and not know who these business cards were. Couldn't put a face to the name. So it's important to remember that as well. I like that one. All righty.
Yeah, along those lines, I think, to build on what Kamina said, I would suggest using a CRM. So HubSpot is free and it's great. Yeah. And so if you do it properly, HubSpot will sort of keep tabs on the emails that you send. And then there's also a note section, right? So when you come home with that stack of business cards, you can, for each person, you can write a little note about, I met them at such and such a place. Because I don't know about you, I'm always misplacing the business cards. So if I have someplace to store them online, I'm much safer.
Yeah, I like that.
Great.
There's a bunch of apps out there that if you're in meetings, you can take a picture of the card and write notes right away. I know there's a couple things out there too, which is really cool.
I have a suggestion too. I was given this at work that you create a contact for your business name on your phone. And when you meet someone, say, you know what, why don't I send you my digital e-card? And so this way you get their cell phone number. Mm-hmm. And so you have that, and then you sending them your information, and it also has your picture on it if you put your picture on it or whatever. So that's something that I started to do. I mean, I don't meet that many people now in public, but but if somebody like Kamina said, Audrey, I want to connect with you, I would say, okay, what's your cell phone number? And now I have Kamina's cell phone number, and she has all my contact information.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's great. Do you guys have any questions so far about the spider web or what we just chatted about? All right.
I do have one. What if you don't have an ask currently?
If you don't have an ask? Yeah. I mean, I think that you definitely bring something to the table. So even in your networking, it's okay to not have an ask. It's just more important, I would say, to know like what you bring to the table and what you could provide for someone. And then eventually you might need an ask or have an ask. Like when I go to BNI every single week, we're supposed to have an ask, which always is like, refer candidates to me. But most weeks I go just wanting to say like, oh, this is a new job we're working on, or this is who we want to be connected with, but also just to learn about, you know, the others in the group and chat about their businesses. And eventually I'll need an insurance guy. Eventually I'll need someone to help me find a new place or buy a house or financial planning, etc. So just know what you bring to the table and, you know, have the conversation. Thank you. Yeah.
So how do you feel about the elevator pitch? I've been taught that like from school, and I do say that to my students, but is it still acceptable, or is it kind of, do we have to word it a little bit differently? What is kind of like the situation with that?
Yeah, that's so funny you say that, because I remember when I was in college, like the elevator pitch was such a huge thing. I think that goes with like knowing your story. And because people do, the first thing they want to find out about you is like, you know, who you work for, what you're doing now, what are your interests, et cetera, et cetera. I would say like, I think it's just, you just need to word it a little bit differently nowadays. Like when you're first meeting someone, have maybe like a 1-minute little synopsis about you, what you do, and then have questions for like, oh, what general questions, like what do they do? You know, kind of connect with them on that level. And I always start with small talk. Never underestimate the value of a small talk, like getting to know someone, where they live, because they could very much say like, well, I'm in the middle of a move. I like doing this, this, and this. They need to know like an architect or someone in construction. And then I go right to my BNI group and have someone to refer to them. Even though I'm not getting any business out of that, I'm making those connections. And then with that elevator pitch, I would say it's more, again, like your story, and what you're doing now versus, you know, walking up to someone and being like, hey, I do this, I need this, you know.
I have a thought on elevator pitches, because I thought that was a really good question. I've actually had multiple, I used to think of it as like my introduction. I have multiple introductions depending on who I'm speaking to, just because the nature of your pitch or your introduction or how you show up is going to change based on who you're speaking to. So I always usually have a couple things like in the back of my head, just depending on the environment that I'm in. Like in this environment, you know, I introduce myself as an entrepreneur and a creative storyteller. But if I'm on the job hunt, I might actually introduce myself as a sales and marketing professional with X amount of years of experience in B2B. And like, I can kind of go into that gamut. So I think that just understanding who you're actually speaking to and not necessarily feeling like you need to have every part of your career or skill set or what you can offer in that, but what's most relevant into that space.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. But I think it's great for students to kind of think about their resume and create that elevator pitch, just to find like a place where they can start and have that foundation, so that they have those stories in the back of their heads, and for interviews and when they're being approached by recruiters, etc., and like being able to explain professionally like their experiences and what they know, etc. So I think it's still useful in a school setting, but applying it in the real world is like a little bit different.
Now is just one more question is as far as kind of like meeting, I guess before COVID, I used to have students say maybe do kind of like coffee meetings or coffee engagements. Is that kind of like still good to go as far as for like, I guess, connecting or networking, or is that kind of played out, or should it be something different?
Oh, I love coffee, like one-to-ones and informational interviews and things like that, just because, especially as students, if they don't know what they want to do, I think that's just so important. And then it also gets them, again, talking about their story and opening up and coming up with questions and like connecting with someone, which I think is just so important to practice. I was terrible at interviewing when I first started interviewing. When I was graduating, I botched my first phone interview, which happened to be international call because I was studying abroad while interviewing. It just was not a great setup, but I needed that experience, and thank goodness I had it. And so I think just like the coffee one-on-ones, it's almost like them treating it as an interview. So it's just so important. I very, very much worth their time.
I have a sort of follow-up. Oh, wait, am I on mute? Am I talking? Okay, good. A comment and a question. Is it Kamina? I have heard some people are doing virtual coffees. So if somebody's not comfortable, going out yet, they can do that. But my question is, like, what to say now, or what's the ask for an informational interview? Because, I feel like I was previously having them and talking to people about, so where do you see growth opportunities? And the answer right now, I think, would be nowhere. So, like, what can you ask people that could kind of get you to where you need to go, other than just like, do you know anybody you can introduce me to?
Mm.
Is this, in what context? Is it like students asking?
No, well, I mean, so I'm asking for myself, so I'm too old to be a student, but asking for asking working professionals, if they could meet me for coffee or do a virtual coffee.
Like what topics to discuss and chat about?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, always connecting on what you did in quarantine. Strategies for reopening offices, if their office is reopening or not. How's their experience with that? How has their experience been working from home, if they're working from home? If they have kids, you can chat about that all day long. Everyone wants to chat about their kids and how awful schooling was when they had to go online. I know this because my sister is a teacher. And I think, you can ask some business questions like, have you guys, I think it's tough to ask this, but have they like changed where they're getting their revenue from, budgets? How has this affected them? What have been what have they been creative about recently? There's a lot of topics you can chat about, right? Especially, I mean, obviously when the market is great, everyone can talk about the amazing things that they're doing. But I think so now you can talk about like the amazing things that companies are doing to kind of dig themselves out, or just be prepared for when the market comes back.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. I think that's a really great thought, Hannah. I have a thought on informational interviews, because honestly, I think they are the most outstanding things just in terms of networking, particularly if you are either job hunting for full-time employment, or even if you are scoping from just like a sales and prospecting lens. I would just put the intention or the purpose as to like, what is it that you're looking to get out of when you are, facilitating an informational interview. So in particular for myselI'm on the market for looking for a director of business development role. So I have that's relatively hyper specific, because I kind of created a hypothesis in my head, like, okay, I think the next thing that I want to learn in my career, granted the economy is a little bit, I think that this is the area that I would like to learn next. So let me put this hypothesis and let me talk to some people that may be in that space, and just start to maybe talk to 3 or 4 people that may have similar titles or functions, and start to put a pattern together as to what they're saying about that opportunity or what their role is. And in that, I'm like, okay, this makes sense for me. This doesn't make sense for me. Maybe I should start to pivot in that. And I guess in terms of the conversation types, the conversation content, how I've kind of structured those conversations is to either like finding some level of rapport as to what maybe we went to the same college together, maybe we live in the same area based on what's on their LinkedIn, or even just how we've gotten connected to begin with. And then just learning. Like I know you said you're, may feel a little bit too old to be a student, but I genuinely believe that we will always be students. And always be learning.
I love learning.
I was joking, but yes.
No, I know. But I was like, I say that to myself all the time. I'm just like, I'm a little too grown to be a student like this. Like I'm not in college, but I definitely think that just being able to learn side by side with people, and getting a sense of even their perspective on where they think that that their industry is going may actually be where the growth opportunities are. I've personally found out that a lot of brick and mortar companies are standing up digital transformation centers. So that's in e-commerce, just because of the nature of how we've been stuck inside with COVID. So there may be an opportunity there, and just digging deeper and deeper to just learn, and then circling back to sustain that relationship with, hey, I remember something that we talked about. This is an article, or hey, I remember we talked about this, and I just want to give you an update as to where I'm at in my progress. And I think that sometimes that is just sustaining a relationship out past the coffee, past the virtual coffee.
I love that. That was another thing that I was going to mention too, is when I'm chatting with candidates and reconnecting with them after, like I placed them a year ago, we've been sending out like these work from home packets that are like fun little tips and things to do while you're staying at home or working from home. So it's always a nice touch to send something like that or an article or anything like that after chatting with someone. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So I do want to keep an eye on time, Hannah. We got to.
Sorry.
No worries. But yeah, we can come back, definitely come back to like Q&A, because I think there's a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think that this slide goes to networking during COVID-19. It's all virtual. When I'm saying like coffee talks and things like that, we're definitely all doing that virtually, unless of course you're comfortable and you're in the same city and want to do like a social distancing walk or coffee. You can definitely do that. I think that if you're trying to expand your network or find a job, etc., setting out time during the week, like an hour a week, 30 minutes a week, just to like research and reach out is just so important. And then finding events to attend and then actually attend them. I think sometimes we'll RSVP to a lot of events and then end up not going. So just pick one or two and then do it, versus, signing up for like a million and then doing a million. Obviously, depending on how much time you have. I think people have a lot of time on their hands, this like today more than ever, just with what's going on and being stuck at home. So they want to talk about themselves and how they're getting through this time. So it's easier, I think, to connect first on that level and just say, hey, what have you been doing during quarantine? And then, of course, like reaching out for that virtual coffee or chat, that the worst thing that anyone can say is no or ignore you. So might as well. Virtual networking, meetups, LinkedIn is huge. I love LinkedIn. And then of course, BNI and any other, I know there's a lot of other groups out there that are kind of similar to BNI, which are so important as well. And then discussion.
Does anybody have any networking groups that they find helpful or resources that they find helpful when it comes to networking?
I'm sorry, just real quick, can you just talk about the virtual one-to-one? What exactly does that mean?
Oh yeah, so in BNI,
okay.
we do one-on-ones where we're just chatting with a member in our group one-on-one versus like the whole group being there. So that's what we call. It's just virtually.
I belong to Manhattan Chamber of Commerce. I belong to the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce, and they have small groups, kind of like BNI, but BNI Light, that meet twice a month. So that's another place to meet people who have different types of careers.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Cool.
I don't have any particular group that I have immediately that similar to BNI, but my thought just in terms of the future of networking is it's going to be a lot of virtual communities like this that will definitely be driving the future of how we actually sustain relationships. So like one thing to establish with just like one-offs, but actually being able to tap a virtual community the way that we used to go to, happy hours over in the city, way back when. I think that that's something that is going to very much so be, curated communities, if particularly if they have, prospects or people or target, professionals you're looking to connect with. I know that Adweek, they launched, I believe, a mentorship program, but all of the mentors are like the CMOs of Chase or like, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just looking at it from a sense of what is the level of, I don't want to say prestige, that's such a weird word, but like, what are the intended audiences that are there that I can connect to? Just, I think someone had mentioned knowing that their career, I think it was Dan, you had mentioned that a lot of times your career had been very much so who not even just, your technical capabilities, but being able to enable your career based on the great ideas that you have from being technically savvy are usually the people that are a little bit higher up or side by side.
Awesome. Yeah, how you doing over there?
Nice.
Good. Sorry. My screen hates me. There we go. All right. So what gaps exist in your spider web? And then who can we reach out to today? Would love to hear from you guys. Who do you guys want to reach out to today? I think like if you're thinking about where you are right now, if you're looking for a job, again, reaching out to someone who has that job title in a different industry could be great to set up like a virtual one-to-one. You know, current clients, are you currently like chatting with them? You can reach out to them to do like a one-on-one just to see how they're doing and connect, and also just good to know their networks as well. I think that's a big one that my team is focusing on at work, is just reaching out to current candidates and clients, or current candidates and clients that we haven't chatted with since the beginning of COVID, to see how they're doing now and what's been going on in their businesses, which I think is important too. But I think that I would love to hear from you guys, like, where do you think your gaps are, and also like where could we potentially help, and then good suggestions as well.
I don't recall the gap. I'm sorry, the gap, the web. That's so silly. I don't recall what the web actually looked like. I know that there was, I saw that there were volunteers, et cetera, but I know, oh yes, that'd be helpful. Yes, thank you. Yeah, I would say that for me right now, my biggest area of focus is likely going to be in the work gap. As I'm looking to either reconnect with executives that have worked at previous companies that I've had, and really kind of establish that more sponsorship sponsorship or mentorship relationship. Because I recognize that there are higher level conversations that happen over in their rooms that don't necessarily happen over in my rooms. So that is where I'm looking to kind of lean in and just get more visibility so I can improve myself and kind of climb the ranks a little bit more strategically for myself.
Okay.
And I want to kind of, I guess, go on that as far as the work or people that you previously worked for, or previously worked with, how do you go about connecting with them? And it could be past a year or like 5 years ago. You know, how can you kind of like ease into? Oh, you said, Mac, no, don't, no.
No.
Oh.
Don't pay attention to my face.
Okay. So how do you do that, ease into it without, them saying, well, it's been 5 years, like, leave me alone. Like, how do you do it without, I guess, coming across like, oh, now you need me?
Yeah. That's a great question. And that's definitely a question that's come up multiple times when I'm reconnecting with candidates. Since like I didn't have a lot of jobs to recruit for right in the beginning of March, I was calling candidates that I met 2 years ago, just like as a reconnect. And some people are very open to that conversation, and some people are like, what do you want? And we're very off-putting. But I think I would say like 90% of the candidates that I called to reconnect with, I was like, hey, it's been 2 years. I'm sorry, it's been a while. I'm sorry it took a pandemic to reach out again, but I did want to connect and just see how you're doing during this time. And I just wanted to see if you're doing okay, your family's doing okay, and make sure everyone is healthy and happy. And if you need anything, you know that you can reach out to me. And then after saying that, usually people were like, oh, well, I'm in so-and-so with this and this. And then we would have a nice chat. And it didn't matter to me if like they were job searching and would be like a candidate again. No, I just wanted to make sure that they were doing okay. So I think coming from that perspective, and then also acknowledging even at first, like, hi, it's been so many years, and apologies that I didn't connect before this. You can definitely use my line, apologies it took a pandemic to reach out, but I just wanted to connect and see how you were doing, and just, go from there.
I think people are very open to connecting during this time because they're looking for connections. I heard from someone I worked with maybe 15 years ago, and no apologies necessary, really. I mean, they're happy to connect. Fine, we chatted, see what you're doing, what have you been doing. So I think it's particularly now is a good time to do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Hi, Amy. Sorry I didn't see you there before.
Hi, Hannah. How are you?
And also
Yeah.
to, if I could add, I think there was the expression, "Oh, now you need me." I think if someone reached out to me and I haven't talked to them for years and they needed my help, they may come with that, I guess, that karma, that mindset, or that thought process of, "Oh, I'm going to be using Dan." But for me, it'd be like, "Oh, are you kidding me? I'll be helping that John Doe or Jane Doe." So you never know where it's going to land with people, where it's like happy to help, even though we haven't talked in years. So it's really just a matter of finding those type. Hopefully that helped.
Yeah.
I find you can also reverse the formula, right? Because we normally think of it as, oh, I need to reach out to Hannah. What's my excuse, right? The other thing you can do is try to find opportunities that pop up and see who you can reach out to as a result. And let me explain what I mean. So a friend of mine a few months ago told me, oh, her son is a doctor and he just moved to Jackson, Mississippi. Right? I'm like, okay, that's fine, and doesn't apply to me. I just tucked it away in the back. So this morning I'm watching the news, and they said the epicenter of the COVID in the United States is Jackson, Mississippi. Right? So I sent an email to my friend saying, hey, isn't your kid a doctor there? Like, is he okay and everything? And so it's just another way to keep the network alive. I don't really need anything from her right now, I don't think she needs anything from me. But at least we've reconnected, and so it's part of it just kind of keeping the pot stirring.
Yeah, I love that. Keep the network alive. That's a good one. I think that's also a good thing to keep in mind when you're networking too. Yeah. Well, if you guys have, I guess, Mac, do we want to move on to reaching out right now?
Yeah.
I know we're on time. Sorry.
Yeah, I think, for those of you who can't stay on, we were just going to do a little exercise. We were actually just going to reach out to somebody in our network. Yeah.
So we'll give you guys like 5 minutes to do that. Maybe less. How much time do we have?
Yeah. Yeah. So for those of you who are looking for work or notice those gaps in your network and have done the work of seeing maybe a potential person you can reach out to, we actually just wanted to give you guys the opportunity to do that thing now, because I know it can be hard to make time to do that. So I just wanted to take 5 minutes for everyone to reach out to somebody. And if you need help, Hannah can hop into a breakout room with you. You can chat privately with her. Does anybody have any questions about that? Cool. Okay. Well, I'm gonna reach out to someone in my network right now. So yeah, we just want to take 5 minutes. You can even turn off your screen or mute yourself, and then we'll hop back in and just kind of wrap up after that. Let me or Hannah know if you need any guidance or ideas or anything like that.
Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Hello, Marius.
Okay, we'll give you about 1 more minute just to wrap up. I wanted to give more time to this exercise, but we're a little short on time. As long as you could start, the reaching out. That's all that matters. Yeah, I'll give you about 1 more minute and then come back and see how that was for everybody. Okay. See, Amy Chen, thanks for joining. For those of you who are left, does anyone want to share kind of how that was, if you experienced any roadblocks or paralysis or anything like that? Any challenges? Okay. Well, I'll assume it was a great success for everybody. Awesome. So, Hannah, what do we have next here?
Yes, I think if you guys have any other questions, we're happy to answer. Comments, takeaways, love to hear from you guys. Do they have my information? I guess they don't.
Yeah, they'll get that in a follow-up email.
Okay, great, awesome.
Yeah.
I again work with Beacon Hill Staffing Group, and I work on our associates team that does admin and office support roles. We do have teams that staff in legal, tech, now life sciences and health, and finance and accounting, and HR. So happy to make connections wherever I can. If you guys need any connections to a staffing agency that specifically staffs something that someone needs, etc. Otherwise, yeah, do you guys have any comments, takeaways, questions, concerns?
And yeah, if you want to, you can throw them in the chat. But yeah, just want to thank you guys for showing up. We plan to do more of these. I'm just going to drop a quick survey in the chat. You guys want to tell us how we did and give us any feedback for next time? You can do that after the event. Just copy and paste it in your browser. You guys are interested in attending any more of our events, I'm going to just drop in the events page, kettlespace.com/events. Next week, if you're looking to kind of network in a kind of fun, casual environment, there's this show that we run every week called The Morning Hump, with this comedian who kind of gives the audience a prompt, and they all go into breakout rooms and kind of talk with each other. And usually there's a really interesting guest that comes on as well. It just kind of helps loosen people up. So it's a good opportunity to network. As Hannah said, we're always networking. But I just want to be respectful of people's time. Amy, yes, I will get you the contact info. But yeah, thanks for attending, guys. Hannah, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I'll stay on.
Anything.
I can
Okay,
stay on
cool.
until.
Cool. Yeah, showing up, guys. I hope this is helpful to you. Yeah, really good ideas on here. Cool.
Thank you for joining.